welcome back to Fox 43 AM Live. Ahead of the release of her debut novel, A Town with Half the Lights On, please welcome Paige Getz. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is great to have you on the show today. I was honored to be able to get an early reader's copy of the book, and I fell in love with it so quickly. So it's great to have you on the show to chat more about it. I want to start out, tell our viewers what this book is about.
It's about a family of New Yorkers that lose everything and inherit land in Goodnight, Kansas, which is a very fictitious town. And it's sort of about them becoming part of the community and resisting being part of the community, and how they manage and how they're changed by the town, but also how the town is changed by them.
As a debut novel, I was surprised to see the story in the form of articles and emails. So what spurred that style on?
It's really funny. I had written one novel that was written just traditionally. It was a third-person novel set in the same town, and it was really focused more on one of the main characters, Disco Kennedy, as an adult. And that story, I went to write her backstory and ended up writing 150 pages on the entire history of the town, dating back to the Civil War. And I loved it. That was when the world of Goodnight really came together, but it was very much conflicting with the rest of the story. I felt like I had two books stuck together. So I took a little break, and when I went back, I tried to find a way to rescue this town. I felt like I was losing. I thought the book was really kind of a failure. And so I thought, how can I save the world of this town? And which I didn't realize was sort of an unconscious metaphor, because I was sort of grieving that I had written this book that I just didn't think worked. And so I thought, well, how can I save this town? And so I started experimenting with different perspectives, because I was sort of done with Disco. I just needed a break from her.
Disco is a lie, yes.
I had been in her head for years. I had been writing kind of from her perspective for years, and I needed a little break from her. So I started experimenting with different characters in the book and writing, like I would write a letter from one character to another and think, what does that feel like? And by the end of it, I couldn't choose a perspective. Like, I loved all of them. And I had just read two epistolary novels, so letters novels, back to back. And I really loved the way you could get into different characters' heads and then jump to a new one and see the world through their eyes. And especially when you would see one story from different perspectives, when it would shift like that. I think that's just kind of a magical way to tell a story. And I love it. I love jumping around from different ways of looking at the world in fiction. And so I decided to just try it. And I think when it really came together was when I wrote one of the chapters starts with talking about the Mayday Diner, and that it's on the verge of closing and can't find someone to buy it. And when I wrote that story, I got to draw from my background in journalism and being a reporter, and but I got to kind of play with the voice of it a little bit more than you would in like urban journalism. And I loved it. I loved being able to write news stories again. I hadn't worked as a reporter for a long time, and so it was really fun to write from that voice again. And in the research that I did, I looked at a lot of community newspapers, and I love reading community newspapers, especially from small towns, because they're so unselfconscious and so personal, and you really get to feel the voice of the town through these writers, through editors who write very much for each other and without the self-consciousness of being like an urban source of journalism. So so that was really fun to write.
Okay, you mentioned like all this research, and throughout the book, the Solvangs are huge into cooking. Are you a natural cook, or was that a ton of research that had to be done?
It was a lot of research. It was a lot of research. The cooking thing, I didn't plan for that to happen, but because I had written the first book that was in the future, and in it they owned the diner. So when I was writing a prequel to that book, I was asking myself, like, okay, how did we get to this point? They own a diner, and I didn't totally connect with Sid Solvang in particular until I created him, made him a chef. And then I saw that he had this artistic angst that was something that I really identified with. And it's something that I find really interesting is that I think artists in general and chefs share this sort of artistic angst and the sort of the burden of being a writer, being an artist, trying to create something and knowing that it's going to be judged and knowing that it could be misinterpreted, and one, like it says in the book, one misunderstood bite. And I've always felt that way as a writer, that there's something very pure about when you're writing in your pajamas with your dogs in your kitchen, and then you can't really think about who's going to be reading it at the other end. And so I think that's something that's true of chefs and creating a dish, and when you're creating something for your family versus creating something that's going to be judged. And a lot of the food came from my obsession with there's a TV show called Top Chef that I've been watching for over 20 years. And it's really funny because my cable had gone out and I never watch cooking shows because my family will tell you I am a terrible cook. But our cable was out and I could only get one channel and it was playing cooking shows, and it was a marathon of Top Chef, and they just kept playing the same marathon over and over again. And at that time, I was living in LA. I was very lonely, so I would just keep the TV on all the time just to have the comfort of voices. And the next thing I knew, I was totally addicted to watching these cooking shows. I could not get enough of them, and I would watch them, hours of cooking shows and every season for years. And it sort of leaked into the story, I think. And the culture of molecular gastronomy, which is kind of bizarre and kind of fascinating, and that they can turn anything into a noodle. That's wild.
It is so wild. And I know Sid has a lot of wild recipes in the book. Did you try any of them? Like the deep fried Pop Rocks sounded very intriguing.
No, I had a really hard time coming up with recipes that hadn't already been done. I would come up with an idea and I would Google it to find out if it already existed. And no matter how bizarre it was, it would turn out someone had already made it. And so I just had to get more and more bizarre. And Pop Rocks are just one of those things that's kind of fascinating anyway. Like, I've always been fascinated by them. So I was, yeah, constantly trying to come up with squid ink at one point. And but I'm a vegetarian, so I had to Google what does squid ink taste like, and there was a ton of research that went into the cooking end of it. My husband's a really good cook, and he's kind of a cooking snob, and he won't let me in the kitchen. But I burn things. Like I have pretty intense ADHD, and so I'll start cooking, and then I'll walk out of the room and pet a dog and notice something and feed a squirrel, and next thing I know, I've burned dinner. So I'm not trusted in the kitchen in our house at all.
Well, that's all right. And so now with A Town with Half the Lights On set to debut on the 22nd, is there any desire to revisit the people of Goodnight, Kansas in your future?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was sad to finish the book. And the original book that I wrote, I'm looking forward to revisiting now that I've had quite a bit of a break from it. I don't know if I'll stick with the style of writing letters and articles. I don't know if I want to. I would really like to, I think, write just a more traditional novel again. But I love The World of Goodnight, and I love the escape that it was, and for me it was very comforting to write, and I hope that it brings the same comfort to readers, because I think this is a time where we really need comfort, and I think that's what I look for in books, but not in a patronizing or sentimental way. One of the inspirations behind the book that was sort of unconscious, and then as I realized it was there, I leaned into it, was the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And I think anybody who's a fan of that movie, I love that movie. I watch it almost every Christmas, and I really the sense of community in it, and but it's not at all sentimental, really. It's really about a town coming together and a town supporting each other through some really dark times, and that's something that I sort of leaned into, and I left little nods toward the movie throughout the book. So yeah, I can't wait to write more in this town. I would love to.
Fantastic. And now, Paige, real fast, you said you're coming to Wichita for the book's debut. Where can people find you? Are you signing books? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll be at Watermark Books on April 22nd, the evening of April 22nd for my book launch, and I'll be signing books, and I would love to meet people, and I'll have a lot of old friends. I haven't been back to Wichita for a long time, so I'll be meeting with a lot of old friends that I haven't seen. So I'm just going to try to keep from crying. My English teacher, who was a huge influence on my writing and who is the reason I went to college. She kind of tricked me into going to college. Um, she'll be there. I haven't seen her in 30 years. So yeah, we'll be doing a book launch there, and I'm just gonna not wear any mascara and try to keep from crying my eyes out because I'll be so happy to be home.
Wonderful. Well, Paige, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you. And everybody, please, A Town with Half the Lights On will be available Tuesday, April 22nd. Get it wherever books are sold, and definitely head down to Wichita if you like and meet Paige herself. Paige, thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.